I'm going to read out the names of the finalists in no particular order. This is just how Brian gave it to me. So our four finalists are Michael Daring, Emily Easton, you want to clap? Okay. John Nickel, and Malia Missenheimer. Is that how you say it? Missenheimer. So those are our four finalists.
In 2011, a young boy was diagnosed with epilepsy. For a year, he was in and out of hospitals, consulting different doctors, trying new medications, all to no avail. His parents did their best to keep up with his needs, the needs of the rest of the family, and go to work. But the bills were piling up, and the numerous hotel costs didn't help. During one of this young boy's many stays at Carle Hospital here in town, the doctors made a sudden decision to move him to Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. The transport was only 2 hours after the decision was made, though. So these brief 2 hours were spent by his parents packing, getting childcare for the rest of their kids, and getting off work. The last thing on their mind, and what they didn't have time for, was booking a hotel. When they got to Cleveland Clinic and realized they had no place to stay, they were worried because they couldn't afford a hotel room. But one of the nurses there suggested that they look into the Ronald McDonald house associated with the Cleveland Clinic. When they did so, they found that not only did they have a free room, they had a pay-as-you're-able policy, meaning that his parents were able to stay there despite the fact that they couldn't pay for it. Now, imagine this happens in your life. Either you or someone you love is diagnosed with cancer, epilepsy, or some other serious disease. You know the bills will pile up. Now, I don't have to imagine this because I was the young boy in that story. I watched my parents struggle to pay the bills. But because of the love, generosity, and care provided by the Ronald McDonald House, we were able to cut some of that costs. That's why today I hope to convince you to donate to the Ronald McDonald House in Cleveland, Ohio. We'll be looking at the families in financial turmoil due to the cost of catastrophic illness, the care that the Ronald McDonald House provides to those families, and how your donation can help. Now, the first Ronald McDonald House opened in 1974 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But now there are more than 350 RMHs worldwide, all of which are autonomous and owned by not-for-profit organizations. But let's talk about the many families that face financial turmoil due to the catastrophic costs of catastrophic illness. According to the National Center for Biotechnology Information, epilepsy, treating it can cost up to $50,000, maybe more depending on the severity. According to the American Cancer Society in 2017, treating cancer can cost up to $200,000. Again, maybe more depending on the severity. According to Statista.com, a website that uses more than 22,000 sources to come up with its statistics, the average cost of a hotel room as of February of this year was $130 per night. And according to the United States Census Bureau, the average income of 2017 was $60,000. Now, you do the math. $50,000 for treatment, plus $130 a night for a hotel room, while still trying to provide for yourself and your family, that's a lot more than $60,000. So now that you know a little more about the costs involved with catastrophic illness, let's talk about how the Ronald McDonald House helps those families in need. According to Charity Navigator, the RMH has a 4 of 4-star rating. They say that 86% of their funds go to the care they provide. 11% goes to fundraising, and the last 3% goes to paying their staff. But let's talk about what those 86% of the funds actually do. The Ronald McDonald House isn't a hotel. It's so much more. There's a playground for children. There's a large gathering room for families to sit in, to watch TV, to play a game, to just sit and chat. Not only is there just this gathering room, though, volunteers bring in food from various local organizations, businesses, fraternities, sororities, churches. Not only do they bring in the food, though, they serve the food. They clean up the food once it's done. They just provide warm smiles and hugs and try to lift that burden off of the families who have sick children in hospital and are suffering. The goal of the RMH is more than housing. The goal is to provide a home. It's to provide an oasis of support, love, and care. So now that you understand a little more about the need for the RMH and the care that it provides, let me throw a few more numbers at you. According to the RMH website, every night a family stays at the charity costs them $80. They only request a $20 donation, but as I said earlier, they have a pay-as-you're-able policy. So 43% are unable to pay, and the average donation is only $11.31 per night. This means that each night a family stays costs the charity about $70. Most RMHs have about 50 rooms, so each night per charity, the Ronald McDonald House loses about $3,500. so it only stays afloat with your donations. And let's talk about how you can donate. There are two very simple ways. One is to drop your loose change in any of the various containers at the McDonald's that go to the charity. The other way is to donate online. Merely by searching their website, they have a very simple way to donate. Just looking up Ronald McDonald House at Cleveland, Ohio, you can donate to this amazing charity. But now let's talk about why Cleveland. There's a couple reasons. One, I'm a little attached to it. I did see my parents as we were suffering through the financial instability. I saw the amazing care that this gave to my family. But also, the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio is one of the top hospitals in the nation for neurology, and it houses some of the top neurologists in the nation. Neurology is an extremely expensive field, meaning that the patients being treated at the Cleveland Clinic probably have much higher bills than they would if they were being treated at a local hospital like Carl here in town, meaning that the RMH in Cleveland is needed so much more. Now, we've looked at the families who face financial turmoil because of their sick kids and the cost of catastrophic illness. We've talked about the care that the Ronald McDonald House provides to those families, and we've talked about how your donations will help. Like I said, it's extremely easy to donate. You just have to search their website at Ronald McDonald House at Cleveland, Ohio. But let's go back to my story at the beginning. Here were my parents with a child who'd been sick 4 months. They didn't know if I was going to get better. I didn't know if I was going to get better, and the doctors didn't even know if I was going to get better. The doctors thought the next step would be brain surgery, which can cost up to $150,000. My parents couldn't afford that. They couldn't even afford a hotel room. But the Ronald McDonald House came through. Will you? Thank you.
Imagine a little girl. Her name is Taylor, and she is only 6 years old. At such a young age, Taylor is no stranger to the concepts of abuse and neglect. Her parents, both with drinking problems, become aggressive and violent when they get drunk, and they're often late paying the bills, leaving Taylor days without water or power. Now, I want you to think about what you think of when you think of home: comfort, safety, love. Well, Taylor only feels fear when she thinks of home and family. Unfortunately, children like Taylor are everywhere. These very real and traumatic situations are affecting children all over the world. Now, luckily, there is a place that dedicates everything to helping victims of abuse and neglect. Donations to the Crisis Nursery go straight towards helping young kids like Taylor. I have supported this charity in the past, the present, and will continue to do so in the future. Through the Crisis Nursery Center in Urbana, I have personally donated my time and money. I've also done research on this charity on top of doing research about child abuse studies in the state of Illinois. Today, I want to talk about why the Crisis Nursery is worthy of your donation. I'm going to start today by first explaining the unfortunate commonality of child abuse by outlining some numerical data. Next, I want to further explain the services that the Crisis Nursery provides, how to donate to this charity, and also how your donation could be used. And lastly, I hope to help you visualize and understand how important your donation would be in helping these kids recover from their traumatic experiences. Unfortunately, abuse is one of those things that tends to hide in the shadows. It seems to be talked about less and less, even though it is happening more and more. The Crisis Nursery has reported the admission of 5,741 children, and throughout their current locations, they are currently caring for 886 children that are all victims of abuse and neglect. According to a research study done by Susan Cole, who is a professor at the School of Social Work at the U of I, all of these children are no more than 6 years old. Think about that for a minute. That's 5,741 children that have been admitted, 886 children that are currently being cared for through the Crisis Nursery. All of these children are 6 years old or younger, and all of them are victims of abuse and neglect. That number of children is enough to populate a small town, and the Crisis Nursery does everything that they can to help each and every one of them. Child abuse is severe. The trauma that these young kids go through can have a negative impact on the rest of their lives. The Crisis Nursery specializes in 24-hour emergency care as well as counseling for these victims of abuse and neglect. At such a young age, most kids are naive to any bad thing that could possibly happen. However, in 2018 alone, just in Illinois, 1,862 cases of child abuse were reported. Child abuse can and has resulted in severe mental disorders as well as health and physical issues. I want to share with you a story about how the negative effects of child abuse can be carried over into adulthood. So for sake of anonymity, I will be calling this person Michael. So Michael is a victim of child abuse and neglect, and now as an early adult, he suffers from severe stress-related illnesses. These include depression, anxiety, and constant panic attacks. And because of this anxiety, Michael's cardiovascular health has actually declined to that of someone nearly twice his age. The counseling services provided by the Crisis Nursery are to help people like Michael, to help with the recovery and the mind development, to help ensure these kids the best shot at a future. The Crisis Nursery is so helpful and so important to so many young kids, and I now want to go a bit deeper into what services they provide. The Crisis Nursery offers many services to both children and their families. According to the Crisis Nursery official website, they are the only emergency-based child care facility in Champaign County that is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for the entire community to access with no fees or income eligibility. Your donations to the Crisis Nursery allow for the development of these family and child services. These include both counseling and social services, as well as parenting workshops. Without these donations, the Crisis Nursery would not be able to provide such a safe haven for these young kids, and they wouldn't be able to strengthen the bond of the families that come to them for help. Now, there are a few reasons that people tend to be hesitant to donate to charity, but let me explain why the Crisis Nursery is a trustworthy and worthwhile organization. So the biggest thing is money. It's pretty common for people to feel that they don't have enough to donate to charity. However, the Crisis Nursery makes it known that any contribution is greatly appreciated. For an example, the Crisis Nursery does something every year called the Children's Holiday Shop, which is an event that I have participated in many times. This shop allows young kids to come in and purchase Christmas presents for their families at a very low price. Often these gifts don't cost more than $10. And every year, this is one of the most successful events hosted by the Crisis Nursery, and all of the donations go straight back into bettering the organization itself. And this just demonstrates how the tiniest amounts really can come together, how they can add up to make a huge difference. The Crisis Nursery offers so much, and because of this organization, so many kids who are victims of abuse and neglect don't have to feel helpless and afraid. Whether we know it or not, we all know victims of abuse and neglect. Your donation would be instrumental in helping the Crisis Nursery provide aid and comfort for so many children who desperately need it. By donating, you would be helping an entire generation to recover mentally, physically, and emotionally from the trauma that they have had to endure at such a young age. The Crisis Nursery knows how to help these children, our neighbors, our friends of friends. They are able to give these kids a place that is safe. I do ask that you consider the Crisis Nursery as the recipient of your donation. They do have a website that I strongly encourage all of you to check out, www.crisisnursery.net. Here you can sign up to volunteer or donate, as well as view any in-person donation opportunities that they are hosting or affiliated with. One event that is coming up is their 35th anniversary dinner and auction held at the I Hotel here in Champaign on June 7th. There are many children being helped by this institution, and as much as we would all like to be able to snap our fingers and make this problem go away, we unfortunately live in a world where abuse is in every state, it's in every city, it's in every town. We alone cannot stop it, but we certainly can help. It's happening here, it's happening now, and this crisis cannot be ignored. I hope that you consider the Crisis Nursery worthy of your donation. Thank you.
I was lucky. I grew up in a loving family with enough money to get by and then some. Not everyone is as fortunate as I have been. Some kids are ignored by their parents, some are mistreated by their parents, and some just don't get to see their parents at all. Now, in the last speech, Ms. Easton demonstrated the mental and physical impact of this abuse and neglect, but let's take a moment to look at the societal impact as well. These kids have no one to help them grow, and so their decision-making skills suffer. What's the result? As of last December, according to NeighborhoodScout.com, Champaign County is less safe than 89% of Illinois. Your risk of being the victim of a property crime is 1 in 33. If we want to change those numbers, we must combat crime at its source, the loss of supportive family for young children. First, I'll talk about how the loss of supportive family impacts the crime rate, then tell you about an organization that exists to be family for at-risk kids, and finally, I'll show you how easy it is to donate to the organization that I've supported periodically for about a year now, Cunningham Children's Home. Now, how does the lack of supportive family contribute to crime? Well, according to an article from the Department of Justice in 1994, families serve as one of the strongest socializing forces in a young person's life. Families teach their kids to be respectful, to control their emotions, and teach them that they can't always get what they want right away. Studies indicate that positive parenting clearly affects whether children will or will not become delinquent. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, as of April 9, 2019, child maltreatment roughly doubles the probability that that child will become a criminal. So we see how important the family is for the futures of young people, but what is it that Cunningham Children's Home does to give at-risk kids hope? Well, Cunningham Children's Home was founded in 1895 as part of the will of Judge Joseph and Mary Cunningham to be a safe and nurturing home for kids in need. I first encountered Cunningham when I created and ran a theater program designed to help the decision-making skills of the kids there. I have since returned as an actor in a production of The Comedy of Errors by William Shakespeare that my theater company presented there. A normal day at Cunningham looks pretty regular, according to their chaplain, Reverend Gay Crady. We start off with breakfast and school in the morning, both provided by the home itself, then move on to some fairly familiar after-school activities such as sports and creative writing. But there are also some activities that are more tied to the kids' specific needs, such as an anger and impulse management class and what's called a feelings and emotional roller coaster support group. Once a week, the kids meet with the therapist, and once a day, they take something that is called a therapeutic assignment with staff, talking about how to deal with issues in their day-to-day life, or even talking about successes that they've had during the day. I haven't seen much quantitative data from Cunningham. They prefer to show their work in the stories of their residents. The following were sent to me by their chaplain. Pamela lived at Cunningham in the 1980s and credits her experience for the life she has since built for herself. She's a loving mother of 5 grown children, lives in Peoria, and has a good job. She said, "I've learned from Cunningham that you're only a failure if you don't retry what you failed the first time. Cunningham retried with me many times over. They never gave up on me." Before coming to Cunningham, the boy who I will call David lived a life of chaos. His mother's addictions controlled her life, leaving David often without supervision. He was a good student, but his pain sometimes manifested itself into unpredictable fits of rage. First, counseling was offered. Then it was thought that a combination of hospitalization and medication would work, but his behavior only escalated. Finally, David was referred to Cunningham Children's Home. In the 2 years that David spent there, he learned different ways to deal with the challenges of life. Instead of flaring up when he's upset, he lets it out by doing things he enjoys, such as dancing and shooting hoops. He talks about his worries with his therapists, then writes them down and seals them away in what he calls a worry box. In the summer of 2017, David returned home, his mother drug and alcohol-free, for she had been taking therapy as well during that time. But imagine how it could have ended. Pamela could have fallen into drugs or worse. It's unlikely that David would have been able to control his rage if it were not for Cunningham. He could have been a part of a new generation of criminals. So now you see what a need we have for organizations such as Cunningham Children's Home. But how do we help? Well, donating is simple. If you want to donate money, then you just need to go to their website, and there's a place listed there for you to donate. But if you're like me, you don't have a whole lot of money. But what you might have is a talent that you can use. For me, it was theater. I was an actor, and so I used my acting to help the kids at Cunningham. But you could be part of an orchestra, a sports team, or a club. Cunningham would love to have you. Anything to improve the lives of their residents there. I hope you see now why Cunningham Children's Home is needed, how it helps, and how easy it is to donate. We have a duty to help our community thrive, and the best way to do that is to start with our young people. As Pamela said, the youth who live here today need to know first and foremost that I know what they're feeling, what they're going through. They are me, and I am who they can become. Thank you.
It's May 2nd, day 122 out of 365. That means we have completed 33% of the year. According to the Officer Down Memorial page, 35 is the number of police lives stolen from us in the line of duty this year alone, nationwide. Illinois claims 4 of those deaths, and each year we end up losing between 140 to 160 nationwide. And yet every single day, their brothers and sisters still get up and risk their lives to protect us, no matter what the call may be. Officers are trained to deal with domestic disputes, along with traffic stops, hostage negotiations, rapes, suicides, homicides. The list is endless. Officers never know what situations they're going to encounter upon arrival, yet they are prepared for whatever is thrown at them and to serve justice, even if that means sacrificing their own life. Today, I'll be speaking on part of the Concerns of Police Survivors organization, or COPS for short. To show you why this organization is more than worthy of our time, money, and resources, I will discuss the need for this organization, how this organization then helps the survivors, and the importance of our involvement right now. The need for this program is rather straightforward, because one life taken from us in the line of duty is simply one too many, which then in turn leaves even one too many survivors to deal with the after effects of such a traumatic event. Deaths related to the line of duty include those that result from calls that officers are responding to, along with car crashes, police suicides, and anything in between. But the consistent factor in all of these situations is that it is a sudden death. The U.S. National Institute of Health reports that unexpected death is the most common tragic experience dealt with, and the bereavement period leads to many psychiatric disorders. SuddenDeath.org elaborates and says that these disorders have a higher risk of being onset after an unexpected death. Some of these include PTSD, anxiety, difficulty functioning on a day-to-day basis, and a false sense of responsibility taken for these tragedies. Thus, we need accessible resources in order to reduce the risk of survivors dealing with these disorders and feelings. COPS is a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to offering resources to fallen officers' families, co-workers, and friends in order to learn to cope with these tragedies. The COPS organization started out in 1984 with 110 members and is now over 48,000 members nationwide. And although the membership has drastically increased, the number of officers who have given the ultimate sacrifice hasn't changed much, but rather the need for this organization has increased. The Officer Down Memorial page states that in 1984, when the organization was founded, there were a total of 188 line of duty deaths. 10 years later, in 1994, there were 182. In 2004, 167, and in 2014, 159. So as you can see, the number has stayed fairly consistent, as has the need to help the families left behind to reconstruct their lives without a crucial part of it, which is then where the COPS organization comes into play. Dealing with death is never easy, nor something anyone ever wants to talk about. And unfortunately, officers who die sacrifice themselves, and not only in a heroic way, but also in a tragic way. Coping mechanisms vary from person to person, and that is why COPS offers a variety of programs to fill the need of those in mourning. Some of these programs include peer support groups at a national, state, and local level, as well as counseling, conferences, there's camps and retreats, financial assistant programs, anything they can to make these situations a little less horrific. And something we often fail to acknowledge is the response to the media that the agencies have. COPS acknowledges this and offers training and assistance to law enforcement agencies on how to handle their response of the tragedy. COPS then has volunteer officers come from across the state to the survivors to ensure that they receive their full amount of benefits from their fallen officers, as well as organize the funerals and memorials in a way that best honors these selfless heroes who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our safety and protection. And this is why Officer Eisenbart with the Champaign Police Department states that she can rest assured knowing that if anything happens to her while she's at work, because of the COPS organization, her family will be taken care of. There's no fee to join this organization, as the ultimate price has already been paid for by those fallen officers. The organization is funded on grants and donations, and volunteers can be sponsors of the program or partake in community outreach events. Some of these events include awareness walks, there's blood drives, silent auctions, but even actions as small as wearing blue to show your support of law enforcement. But perhaps one of the most notable actions that this organization takes is for National Police Week, taking place in May every year. This year, it's May 11th through the 17th, which couldn't be a bigger sign for us to get involved. In Washington, D.C., this organization starts off by hosting a candlelit vigil and reading all the newly engraved names from the memorial. They then host a conference with guest speakers and debriefing sessions with opportunities for the survivors to take advantage of the information from the people and resources that are offered. COPS then hosts the annual memorial and ends the week with a picnic and concert for a refreshing, more positive, and hopeful end to a stressful week. And like all of their resources offered, all expenses are paid for the survivors, including travel expenses, food, housing, etc. Their website has a list of all the information on the different ways to get involved on a local, state, and national level. And like I said earlier, it is ran on donations and grants, so this money doesn't just magically appear. By offering our money to the COPS organization, it helps assure that not only the funeral expenses are paid for, but all resources are available at no cost for the remainder of their survivors' lives. Donors then gain a sense of fulfillment, knowing that they directly help make sure that all of these camps, retreats, funeral expenses, and everything in between is paid for. The COPS organization is crucial to dealing with line of duty related tragedies and spreading awareness about what law enforcement officers and their families sacrifice for us. Because those blue lives protect us. Because those blue lives are dads and dog moms, they're gym rats and coaches, they're role models. Because those blue lives would give their lives up that they have built for themselves in order to protect complete strangers and selflessly leave their loved ones behind. Because our lives matter, but so do blue lives and their loved ones. Because real heroes don't wear capes, they wear bulletproof vests. Thank you.
Starting with our fourth place, we have Malia, so come on up. Congratulations, we'll give you all of that.
Congratulations. Very good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And number 3, John Nichols. All right. Congratulations.
There you go. And there you go.
All right, thanks. Get a whole handful of stuff. In second place, I'm sure this was a very tough decision for all the judges.
It was close, boy.
Oh, you saw the
Yeah.
numbers. Oh, yeah, they're right here. Second place, Emily Easton. Congratulations, you did great. Which that means that in first place, there's not anybody left, so we have Michael Daring. Congratulations. Nice job.
Congratulations. And there you go. Very good.
Well, thank you so much. That concludes our our 16th annual speech contest.